Welcome to Reflections on Identity, a podcast series looking at educators' professional identity. Today we're talking to Emma Butler, who is head of school in a multi-academy trust, as well as being a PhD student. Emma, as always, we ask people about their role initially. So could you just sort of fill us in on what you consider your role to be at the moment?
Yeah, of course. I think during the day, I'm fully immersed in the fast-paced world of school leadership, making decisions, sort of supporting staff and students. I work in a sort of a large secondary school with a high level of disadvantage. So my role is sort of both demanding and deeply rewarding, I would say. The challenges sort of faced daily can be really tough, but my focus is always on supporting all of the staff and the students sort of to work together towards sort of a shared vision. It's really important to me that everyone strives every day to be the best version of themselves. That's something that I sort of ground a lot of my work on. No 2 days are the same. The role, I think, requires resilience, reflection, and a commitment to continuous improvement. So I never stand still, and that's something that um, I'm always looking for something to refine and improve sort of every single day. In the evening, then I take on a different role as a PhD researcher, sort of diving into sort of educational policy and innovation. I think the dual role really helps to bridge sort of that gap between theory and actual practice. And my research definitely informs my strategies and helps ensure that decisions are not just intuitive, but grounded sort of in that meaningful research. I find balancing the roles really difficult and it's challenging, but I think it offers me a really unique opportunity to shape the present and future of education by doing both roles.
Thank you. So, would you say that your day-to-day role, well, and also your PhD studies, would you say that that influences your identity as an educator?
I think my role as head of school would shape my identity as an educator. At the core, I believe I'm a people person who believes sort of in the potential of everybody. I think my leadership sort of on the conviction that when students or staff strive to be the best version of themselves, improvement will sort of naturally follow, not just in academic outcomes, but in personal and professional growth as well. I see my role as having an important function about fostering that culture of aspiration and also integrity. And leadership integrity is really important to me, which will sort of lead to that continuous development. I think ultimately my identity as an educator is connected to creating an environment where students and staff feel valued, supported and motivated to reach sort of their potential. And I think that shapes my interactions. I also think my PhD work sort of will further refine my leadership identity. I think it strengthens my ability to evaluate educational challenges sort of through that research lens. And I think it's definitely made me more reflective, analytical, and strategic in my decision making. So, yes, I would say it does impact and yeah, I would say that.
And yet, I think what's coming across is how your values certainly influence, well, your role and your identity. And leadership seems to be quite strong, doesn't it, in that? So, do you think professional identity is something that is quite important, well, to you and to your staff?
I think so. Yes, I reflect on a lot as sort of an educator, and I think for me, sort of my 20 years in sort of leadership and education, those experiences obviously shaped who I am as a leader, and those experiences are really important to sort of transfer to staff actually about in their roles. I don't just think my identity is built upon my educational experiences, though. I think my background, in particular, my family's influence. My family have sort of a very strong ethic about relationships and putting relationships at the core of everything. And sort of I grew up in a environment where relationships, and I still do, are really, really important. Also, sort of in the past, in my youth, I was sort of I represented Ireland in sport. Sort of that gave me sort of really key core values as well that I think has also shaped my identity today. And that I think my PhD studies also influenced my identity, because it's sort of it's enhancing it by encouraging that deeper reflection in my role, but also across the people that I lead and manage, and sort of I try and transfer to them and the students sort of those core principles that ultimately drive meaningful change. That's something that's really important to me. Every day I go in to work, or I go to sort of university with the aim of doing something different, making a difference. And I think that can transfer to the staff I work with, just based on the principles of what I talk about and deliver sort of on a day-to-day basis within the role.
I think you've answered this next question to some extent, because it sounds to me from what you were saying like you have quite a lot of influence over your professional identity, but you've also, because that's influenced by core values, but you've also talked about experiences, even, you know, family experiences with other things and how they've influenced identity. I am wondering how much colleagues have, or other people that you've worked with, maybe not necessarily internal colleagues.
I think naturally the people that you work with will shape your core values. If you're surrounded by people who want to drive change, you naturally will sort of look at that as part of your identity, because I really believe in sort of a collective identity in education. You know, there is a strong sense of collective identity, I believe. Sort of we're all sort of bound together by a shared purpose, sort of to inspire, challenge, and support the next generation. So I don't think leadership in education is isolated at all. I think you're part of that collaboration. And I think schools are built on collaboration. So colleagues within that, if you buy into that collaborative approach, naturally, you're going to have a successful educational environment committed to excellence. Definitely, my professional identity is linked to the relationships that I have built across my time in education. And I think that is really important, to use the strengths of people around you. Because I learn every day. I come home every single day and I think I've learned something from this colleague or this student or this leadership decision. So yeah, I'd probably go to the extent where my professional identity is evolving every single day. And to the extent where I would say it's probably different today as it was tomorrow towards next week, built about because of the relationships and what I can see around me. And the good things that you see around you in education, you know, most people in education are there because their heart is in making change. So you're always going to value and be a part of sort of that wider culture that helps you shape who you are and your identity. So it's not something that's ever fixed, I think. I would probably say your identity is forevermore. And I'd probably answer this interview in a week's time and be probably different identity, even better, because that's what it's about for me. I don't see myself as it's fixed at all. But yeah, colleagues definitely influence me, I think.
A constantly evolving thing.
Constantly evolving thing. It has to be, though. I think if you don't have that mindset or that view, and again, my opinion would be you won't drive the educational change that's needed at the minute, because you have to evolve in everything, in your leadership, in your values, and you know, and also the people around you have to know that that's also what you want them to do in their roles, because you know, I lead a sort of a large secondary school with lots of leaders and teachers, and everyone looks at me for all the answers. And sometimes I look back at them and say, you know, your identity, your values will be built upon making the decision on this particular area, for example. So yeah, it's definitely collaborative and yeah. never ending.
Thank you, Emma, for some really interesting thoughts and reflections on identity. I'm going to hand over to Neil in case he has an additional question.
I suppose what I tend to ask as a sort of a finishing off question, Emma, is are there ever any times where you feel your professional identity is kind of challenged in any way, or where either in the role or to do with organizations, there's this kind of resistance or challenge based on any of that, or is it generally fairly cohesive with what you do and how you work?
I think I'd probably say, in my opinion, a great leader can probably stay true to their identity, but also adapt to the environment. Every day can be a challenge, and every day a decision can question. You can question your values, your beliefs because of sort of what you're faced with. So I think there'll always be challenge. Challenge in school, I look at university and my experience there. It's challenging. I have challenging questions from my supervisors about my research. So, but I think challenge is important because challenge will help you reflect.
Mm.
And if you can reflect because of a challenge, then you can only get better and sort of secure your identity. I try really hard to keep my values and beliefs core to every single decision that I make. That's not always easy, actually. It can be quite tough. So yeah, I can think of situations where I have had a lot of challenge. But I'd probably say that I've stayed true to my core principles. And I really do believe that every single person, if they can stay true to their identity values, whatever they are, the decisions will naturally be the correct one. You're never going to get everything right. I don't believe in that. And people strive for perfection. I don't personally believe perfection exists, actually. Because if it did, then we'd never want to get better, would we? So I suppose that's what I'd say with regards to that question.
I mean, that's a really powerful response and a really nice way of ending the interview, the discussion really about the importance of core values and how they inform your identity, Emma. So thank you very much again for your time. It's been really, really, really fruitful. Thank you.
Thank you,
No problem.
Emma.
Thank you very much.
You have been listening to Reflections on Identity. We hope you can join us for the next episode in our series. Click on the bell icon or follow for notifications. We'd also love to hear from you, so please put any thoughts you have in the comments. Bye for now.